Hey everyone. It's been a while since I've updated. Sorry about that. It's getting toward the end of the semester, and it's getting rather hectic. I haven't posted anything since the Snatcher LP, and I'm rather overdue, aren't I? So at this point, I have a few updates for you, which hopefully you'll find interesting. The first, of course, is going to be the next game reveal. Now, this one is going to be another co-op LP, but just a one-off. It's an arcade beat 'em up. The players are going to be me, Vice the Bold, and a third player whom you've never met before. He's a good friend of ours. Calls himself Pyro Jack Frost. I wonder if he gets freezer burn. But anyway, we're going to tackle a. It's a four-player potentially game, but there are three of us, and we are going to play Golden Axe: Revenge of Deathadder. Now, what's interesting about that game is that you might have heard of the Golden Axe series back for the Sega Genesis. The original Golden Axe was for the arcade, but it's probably more likely that you played it on the Genesis if you've tackled this one. I grew up with Golden Axe 1 when I was younger, and there are other Golden Axe games. There are Golden Axe 2, Golden Axe 3, which did not make it to America until Sonic's Ultimate Genesis Collection, so you got all three for the Genesis. There's even Beast Rider for the PS3 and 360, which has not been given very good reviews. I've actually played it, and yeah, pretty much. And there are a couple of other spin-off Golden Axe games, but this one, the one we're playing, Revenge of Deathadder, it's never been ported outside of the arcade, which means, of course, that we have no choice but to emulate it, but there's nothing we can do other than that, unless we somehow find an arcade with that machine, which I've never seen in my life. What's interesting about Deathadder, though, the Revenge of Deathadder, of course, is that it's more of a sequel to the first Golden Axe game than Golden Axe 2 is. It's the Revenge of Deathadder, right? You play as different characters from the original game, but you're still going after the same guy, because there's a different villain in Golden Axe 2. So you might find this one interesting. Even if you have seen Golden Axe 1 on the arcade, Revenge of Deathadder has a lot more work done with its background animations and just various animations in general, really. Characters, enemies. There's a lot going on that I think you'll find very interesting. It's a really cool arcade game, and we play it in just one session, but it's a lot of fun, and I hope you enjoy it. That ought to go up in not too long, just a few days, I think. All I need to do is just render and upload at this point, so it shouldn't be any serious stretch of time, just a few days at most. So be on the lookout for that. That ought to be a lot of fun. And the only other things I have to mention real quick are just a couple of acquisitions that occurred recently. Both of them were things that I never thought would hit America. The first is this. I'm holding it horizontally because that's how the back of the box looks. Damn. Okay, vertical. This is Steins Gate. It's a visual novel. You might have heard of Steins Gate, the anime. It was based off of this. And from what I've heard, the anime, and I've seen the anime, it's amazing, but from what I've heard, it's not as comprehensive as the original visual novel is. I heard the anime was watered down because it kind of has to be, because visual novels are a very different medium. But the thing about this game is that, from what I've heard, it's one of the best visual novels out there, like on par with something like Snatcher or Police Knots. So that gets me very excited. For those of you who may not know, Steins Gate, I don't want to get into what the main plot is, because that kicks in at like episode 10 or something, but it's a serious change of pace, shall we say. But I'll say that the very basic premise of the anime series, and of course the visual novel, is time travel. A bunch of people, like 4 or 5 in the little, team, like the sort of science team at home, discover that it's sort of possible to travel backward through time, just by a little bit. Or, well, not backward through time. What they do is alter events in the past, and then see how it alters the present. So the only way they've been able to figure out how to do this is to sort of send cell phone messages back. Like, you can't send a person back, otherwise the biology decomposes. But they found that you could send electronic messages back. So if you, for example, figured out the lottery and the lottery numbers for today's numbers, and you sent that cell phone message to yourself 3 days ago, yourself back then, and you can't control this directly, but hopefully yourself back then is influenced. Because what would happen is that yourself would pick up a text message that would say, hey, the lottery numbers or whatever. Maybe your past self thinks it's a bunch of BS and nothing happens, and then your present self will be left scratching his head. But otherwise, if yourself does go, I don't know, maybe I'll give it a shot, all of a sudden you'll wake up the next morning without knowing time travel ever occurred, but now you're rich. Now, what makes this interesting is that people do not know when time travel or time altering has occurred. Only the main character has this ability that allows him to be aware that time is being manipulated. So whenever it is, all of his friends have no clue. They just think that their lives went that way the whole time. So he has to tell them, no, I changed the past. It gets disorienting, but it's a lot of fun. And you can imagine that playing with time is one of those, I want to say moral lessons, but it's not like we're really going to learn, like we're going to get time machines, but you know what I mean. It's one of those things like don't play with reality because it never ends well, and a lot of the series is trying to deal with changes that have been made. It's a really, really entertaining series. I highly recommend it. I haven't played the visual novel yet, so I can't say for sure that I recommend it, but I'm sure it's going to be good. I've heard very good things. So I look forward to playing it, absolutely. The other game that, honestly, I thought was even less likely to hit America came out on the 29th, so at the time of this recording, just yesterday. Jojo All-Star Battle. I actually already have a copy of this game in Japanese. I have the, you can't see it from here. I managed to get the limited edition box back when it came out in Japanese because I'm never seeing this in America, am I right? And the limited edition box comes with like a figure thing and a gold plate looking thing for part 5. It's pretty sweet. Like it looks like the design on the box with Giovanna. But the thing with All-Star Battle is that I might have mentioned this a long time ago, but there have been JoJo games in the past, and one of them was based on part 5 of the series, Golden Wind, and it did not make it to America because the only way it would have was if a lot of the names of the characters and their stands were changed, because there's copyright infringement problems. For example, characters and stands are named after musicians and things related to that. Like there's a stand called White Album. There's a stand called Black Sabbath. There's a stand called King Crimson. You get the idea. So rather than change the names, the original creator of the series chose just not to bring it over at all. And honestly, I can kind of respect that decision, even though it's disappointing. But this fighting game here covers all 8 parts of the manga, which means it includes part 5. So, of course it wouldn't get here. It's part 5 plus more things, but no, they made it over. I guess they sucked up the name changes after all. Some name changes are weird. I heard that Jean-Pierre Polnareff was changed to Jean-Pierre Eiffel, like Eiffel Tower, because he's French. Thanks. Some of the name changes baffle me. There's Wham, AC/DC, and Cars. All they did was just change the spellings. Wham is WHAMU, like Whamu. AC/DC is like EISIAC, but it still sounds like the band AC/DC. Cars is spelled a K. Fine, no big deal. But there are changes that baffle me. There are 2 brothers, Oingo and Boingo. I forgot what they're changed to, but it's something completely different. The stand Sticky Fingers is changed to Zipperman, which makes sense considering what it does, but the musical reference is lost, etc., etc. But the fact that it's over here at all is just incredible. If you want to get a physical copy of this, as far as I know, you have to order it off of Bandai Namco's website itself, or off of Amazon. I don't think you're going to find this in a GameStop or anything like that. One thing I have to say disappointed me, though, no instruction manual. The Japanese version had a gigantic full-color instruction manual, so I was kind of disappointed to see that nothing, got over here for us. I mean, it's a fighting game, and the controls are very self-explanatory, and you can see a move list in the game and everything like that, so there's nothing you couldn't figure out. But still, I like to have something to read. One thing I find rather amusing, though, is the back of the box. It says, "The bizarre adventure continues." JoJo's Bizarre Adventure comes to life in a game that takes characters from all 8 incredible story arcs. And meanwhile, all of us in America are like, 8 story arcs? You mean 1 story arc? Because that's all that ever made it over here up until just now. All we ever got was Part 3, which are the characters featured right here on the box, the main character and his stand. Now, it's true that in the Japanese version of the game, you have those main characters really take up a majority of the box, but you can sort of see shadows in the backgrounds of other characters from other parts. Here, the closest you get is a shadow of the villain of Part 3 over here. Now, I get that. That's all Americans, if they didn't follow the manga, would understand. But here's the thing. If Americans are ordering this game, then odds are they've gone and read the manga that's been fan-translated, because really, how many JoJo fans are there in America that only read Part 3 and then stopped? I imagine a lot more who've heard of the series have gone to read more of the series. So, I don't know, that just strikes me as kind of funny. But it's really interesting to see if this game's actually here in English, so I'm rather excited to play this. I will happily pay for the DLC characters again, because I'm really passionate about this. I make references to the series every once in a while during my LPs and things like that, so it's really cool to see that I can now properly own a game that I didn't have to import that's not for sale outside of Japan. So that's rather refreshing. But anyway, long story short, those are the updates I have for you for now. Again, the next game reveal is going to be Golden Axe: The Revenge of Deathadder. It's going to be our first 3-player co-op game. Again, it's a one-off because it's an arcade beat-em-up. It's not going to take insanely long. The actual gameplay is just about an hour, I think. That's all it is. So it's a really good time, good conversation among all 3 people, and you get to see a Golden Axe game that you might not have seen before, even if you follow the Golden Axe series, because I love me some Golden Axe, but up until this point, I'd never seen it before. So it ought to be a really good time. Expect that up in a few days. Until next time, everyone.